But yeah, I'm glad I can make it. Very glad.
So what time zone are you in?
For me, it's 9 a.m. right now, and the other meetings are at night usually.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so this would okay, this would have been 7 a.m. for you before.
Yeah.
So are you in? Have you just turned off daylight saving or on daylight saving?
Yeah, exactly. We're going into winter, and I think you're the opposite of the rest of the world, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, we are pretty much. Yeah.
Are you driving?
No, no, I'm just sitting in the car though.
Hmm.
That's my office, the car.
Nice.
Yeah. So how's things been for you?
To be honest or pleasant?
Well, we only want honest, even if that's unpleasant.
Yeah. Um, I guess I wish I had better stuff to report. It's been a little bit brutal at times. Just thinking like, um, I don't know. Do you want to turn off the live stream maybe?
Yep, sure. Um,
Wait, can I just say one more thing before you turn it?
okay, hang on, I'll just pause it again.
Organism problem, biological. So
Well,
I
what I'm
guess that's
saying is you can't separate those things.
hmm
And what you can do is you can add a whole lot of other things to it. And so
hmm
that nothing is purely spiritual or purely psychological, and nothing is purely physical.
hmm.
And so what I want to lead us to as quickly as possible is it doesn't matter what the official label might be. It
Mm.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't change your experience to have that label. It's the doctors want a label because then they can find the right pill for it. But essentially for you, look, here's the thing. The only thing that is actual, the only thing, and I dare you, I really want you to try and find an exception to this. The only thing that is actual for you is your experience. Nothing else. There's not a single other thing that is actual, that is real. I don't like to use that word, but I'll use it here. It's real. That's the only thing. Everything else is unreal. The only thing that is real is your experience. Now, that's on a at a almost on an absolute level to say that. It's the only thing that is actual is your experience. But what you've got of your experience is your interpretation of it. And that comes from the way you look at it. Right? So even though that is the only thing that's actual, you don't actually know what that is. You can only describe certain aspects of it. A, because that's all you can get in touch with. B, because that's all you've got words for, whatever. But the whole point is that's the only thing that's actual. This idea about Parkinson's or having a physical problem of some kind or having a psychological problem, they're just stories.
hmm
Now, they might be accurate stories, but you don't know that. You've got no way of knowing that. So
Mhm.
why do you want to get up every day and run through the list of horrors, all of the things that could go wrong, and remind yourself of them and make them immediate and keep yourself right up there with them? That's kind of a rhetorical question, but you get what I mean. That these things that we know are not actual, yet we take them to be actual. I might have Parkinson's. That's actual. That's not actual. That's just a story, isn't it? It might be right, but you don't know.
Mhm.
So it's a story. Yet you when you think of that, you think of having Parkinson's, you're going to respond to that story. Now that response is actual. It's real, but it's also unnecessary because if you didn't have the story about Parkinson's, you wouldn't have had that response.
Mhm.
So what the way I see it is that you're telling yourself stories on a regular basis that take you into that hell realm.
I guess I see it the opposite. I see it as like I don't feel well, and so then I panic and try to figure out what it is so that I can effectively solve it, right? If it's
Yeah,
physical, I need
yeah.
to solve it physically. If it's spiritual, I need to solve it spiritually. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? And how do I solve it? And
Right,
that's
right.
basically, and
Okay,
then
yeah.
my mind and Vince, as much as you guys hear the craziness of my mind goes in every single direction. It's very active, and I guess I should say it's a blessing, but it's like it goes in so many everything I've ever read will pop
Yes.
up to me,
Yeah.
every article, everything, and I'm just trying so hard to solve the suffering.
Mm,
And so I guess that's what it looks like. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what I'm suggesting is that instead of a grandiose plan to solve the suffering, what you do is solve the solve to put it in terms of solving something. I want you to solve the unclarity, if that's a word, I made it up, um, around what you're actually feeling. Right. So, in other words, instead of look, instead of trying to solve the problem, I want you to define the problem in terms of what is actual.
mhm,
Right. So even when you can describe muscles behaving in a certain way as a contraction, right? And we don't even want to go as far as to say that's resistance, because that's also taking us away from the experience of the muscle contraction. And it's by getting into that muscle contraction that you're going to get closer and closer and closer to that monster under the bed or whatever it is that's there.
wait, say that again in terms of I didn't get the last sentence.
In well, we're using the metaphor of the monster under the bed,
Mhm,
right? And you'll get closer and closer to that by clarifying what are the actual sensations that you're experiencing, right? So we've got it. We're using a label called contraction because we're in some kind of a hell realm, and that's what we do in there. We hold ourselves tight to try and protect ourselves. So we've got this contraction going on. Now that's just words, right? There is an experience that you're having that those words point to. That's where I want you to put your energy. That's where I want you to put your focus. That's where I want you to shine the microscope and look at the details of it. Go in more and more and more detail, more and more and more clarity, more and more fine tuning the awareness around what it is that's actually going on without words, without stories, without labels. Now that's your way out of this stuff. What will show, we don't know, but we know that that's how it will either show or dissolve, and it will show and dissolve or it will just dissolve. By you going into those sensations, and don't, you tell yourself a story. Oh, I'm going to be here for 5 hours doing it and it's not going to work. It's a story. Back to the sensation, back to what you're experiencing in the body. That's your out. Every single time your out is into the discomfort that you're experiencing. Now, do you remember that? How do you remember that? How does it come to you? When you're having, one of those episodes where you're in the hell realm. That's a tongue twister, that one, isn't it? When you're in the hell realm, right? Your body's behaving in a certain way, right? So what first thing you need is the thought to turn up that says, let's look at the sensations. Let's get right into the sensations. Let's put these sensations under a microscope. That's the thought that you want to invite, that will give you the impetus to change direction and go into looking at what it is you're feeling. And that's what we need to cultivate. So we need to cultivate the trigger in the form of a thought that says, do this, get into those sensations, and then we need to just sink into them, look at them, feel them, right, as much as possible. And that's all. Every time you come up with this other thought, this other story about maybe it's Parkinson's, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's mental, or maybe it's, whatever, or non-duality doesn't work, or what, yeah, just piss it off. Go away. Leave us alone. You're a story. I'm not interested in you. I want to know what I'm feeling, and you're masking that by being active with these stories. So that's what you say.
Hmm. I guess um, I have two questions about that. One is that it seems to be so many hours of the day now that I go underwater, and it's like I don't have the luxury of only doing it when I'm home. In other words, does I need to go into some deeper state where I can lie down and like sink into it, or can I semi sink into it while I have to function with humans?
Yes.
Um,
The second one, yeah. So we don't need to go and lie down. Right? I mean, that may happen, but essentially, we want to develop this ability in normal daily life. We want to do it while we're talking to somebody else. We want to do it while we're doing a job. We want to do it while we're busy with other things, if it's appropriate.
Yeah, because it seems like when I'm actually having to function, I can't let go all the way because I still have to maintain some awareness. But again, maybe that's a story. Maybe I will be able to,
Right? Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, maybe not at first, but
So, do you see also that hell realm will wait for circumstances to come on fully? If you're busy with somebody or you're involved in something, you can say to it, not now, and put it off. Does that?
sometimes that works, sometimes not.
Mm.
And I'm doing all this to get familiar with the sensations and see what they are rather than running and being scared from them. Is that what I'm doing? Like, how do I explain this?
No.
No.
No, you're looking for a conclusion again, aren't you? Because they aren't anything. They're transient, every one of them. They're moving all the time and changing.
In other words, what's the value of being with sensation? Is it just that it gets me out of thoughts, or is there actual value in getting putting my attention deeply into sensation?
Well, it does that and more. Yeah.
Okay.
probably the big thing we want at the moment is for you not to get into the old familiar routines to try and rescue yourself.
Hmm.
So the ultimate goal, if you like, is to recognize that everything you've said today, everything you normally say, is said by a self. Or it's not a self. It's not a self, but it is a self. It's said from the perspective of a self. It's said it's your point of origin for saying all of that. It's your stand on the stage.
Like the thought that I need to solve this, meaning.
Yes, all of that stuff. Yes, yes, and maybe it's this, and maybe it's that, and I wonder, and what can I do to fix it, and it's and on. It goes like it's a pretty large movie, isn't it? And it gets replayed. It's on repeat, isn't it?
Wildly so. It's like the movie runners don't run out of steam. It's like it's the same horror show and it won't stop. It's like turn it off, turn off the lights, go to sleep already.
Mm. So can you see that this point of origin of this stuff, this place where this metaphorical stage that you stand on and tell these stories are from the perspective of a self being real, a self running the show, a self having to fix this. Can you see that?
I don't think about it that way, but when you ask me, then yeah, it's like there's a thought. I need to solve this. Yes, that is the main thought of my life, I guess.
Mm. Mm. So I know that that self is not actual. It's just a way of describing behavior, experience, whatever. It's not, there's not really a self there. I know this. I know that there's no self there, but that's me knowing it. That's no help to you.
And I also I think I don't know what you mean by that. Like when you say there's no self there, to me I go into flights of fancy of like, so wait, there's no body there. In other words, it's very hard to separate. I'm starting to hear as I hear more of what you guys say, but I don't know what you mean by what is actual, what is real, what is not. There is no self. It's like you could go into weird
Yeah.
states with that, but the closest I can come to understanding is when I've had moments where I just where there's not that thought of anything to solve or save, and there's just being at peace or just resting and stuff is just
Yeah.
happening. That's the closest I can imagine you're talking about. And I'm not
Mhm. Mhm.
thinking about it's not that I believe there's no self. It's just in that moment I'm not thinking about, ooh, there is a me and I need to solve this. It's just kind of being at peace and floating on the waves of what's happening. That's the closest I can understand. I don't know if that's relevant to.
Yeah. So even when you're speaking as though there was a self there, it's as though there was a self there. it's from the perspective of that story about a self. But that self is nothing but a story. And how could a story fix another story? How can a story of Tammy fix a story of Parkinson's or a story of anything? How can a story, can a thought think, or does a thought just appear and that's it? It appears like a dead a dead beacon of something, a dead. What Paul says, it's chalk on a chalkboard. That thought. A thought has no ability to think, does it? A thought can't reason. It can only be about reason. It can only be about thinking, but it can't actually do any thinking. Can it? Do you think?
That's a very mind warping question. Can a thought think?
Hmm.
It's like a tongue twister for the brain.
Well, do it in real time. Like think of a thought. Think of a thought now. Think of a thought of a pink elephant, right? So then you've got this image in your mind that's kind of half formed about a pink elephant, right? Can that pink elephant have any relationship to the next thought, which is about a black rat or a
Well,
unicorn?
now I'm imagining the pink elephant eating the rat, so they seem to interact. But I
But
think,
that's a third thought, isn't it? That's not the elephant thought, and it's not the rat thought. That's the third thought,
mhm.
right? The elephant thought can't think anything.
I think what you're saying is that, like, well, I don't know if what you're saying, but what I'm thinking that you're saying is that the whole thing is happening in this thought bubble. And I saw this one day. It's like the thought will say, "Oh, maybe there's a thing," and then another thought will say, "How do we solve the thing?" And all of it is all happening in the thought bubble, trying
Yeah,
to solve each other, kind of thing. Is that what you kind of mean?
yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. Exactly, yes. And so the idea of if there's something wrong, firstly finding that there's something wrong, and then fixing it is all in the thought bubble. Never gets out
Yeah,
of the
it's all
thought
like a
bubble,
mental
does it?
exercise. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I saw that a few times, that it's like there's the room and there's my body and there's the sensations and then there's that whole thought thing that I can kind of come and go out of maybe. But then I start bashing myself, why can't I get out of that? And why am I in other words,
Well,
it
because
just draws me back in
yeah,
infinite ways.
yeah.
It's
Well,
wild. It's wild.
when you say why can't I get out of it, can you see that that's just also in the thought bubble?
Yeah.
The why, the I, the can't, getting out, all of that's in the thought bubble. None of it's actual.
Yeah, in those times when it's clean, it's kind of like it's very clear, the delineation. There's like the room and sounds and stuff, and then there's all the thoughts in the bubble. But a lot of times it goes into like it becomes one big foggy like nightmare kind of scape of like uh, sensations and overwhelm, and it's very hard to separate what is what when it's like an overwhelming experience, like being in one of these horror shows or something like. But like the body, the mind, everything is overwhelmed with all of it, and at those points it's like being underwater or something or in a fog, and at that point I don't know what's up or down, what's
Yeah.
thought or not. But
See, when you say maybe this sensation that I've got at the moment is the result of me having Parkinson's, can you see that that story leads you away from what your actual experience is?
yeah.
And that's the purpose of the story, to try and make you feel better, right? So even though it's a shitty story, maybe I've got Parkinson's, what a shitty story that is. It's better than feeling what you were feeling. It's your way out of it.
Mm.
What does that do for you? Where did you go just then?
I was just trying to process that of like, is it really the physical sensations that my
You're doing
organism
it
is
again, see? You're breaking it up. You're making it,
no,
you're
no,
trying
no.
making something out of nothing there, creating a story. Yeah.
No, but I guess I was thinking, is the physical sensations so bad that that's what my mind is trying to distract me by making stories about? Or also the emotional and the
Can
mental
you
is what
can
it's
you
trying to
see that?
distract me from?
Can you see that when you ask yourself a question like that, the whole intention of that is to take you away from what you were feeling. That's what we
Is it?
call resistance. Yes, yes. So even
Uh-huh.
though you give yourself a story that's a pretty shitty story and you say, well, I wouldn't want that story because it's shitty, it's still better than the other one, or at least it's better than what you fear about the other one, because you never know what the other one is because you're getting away from it all the time.
Uh-huh. So I'm thinking it's even worse than that, in other words. And so my mind is trying to put a label because it could be even worse. Like
Yeah,
maybe I'm going crazy or whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like,
Well,
okay,
it's got these pet things, these pet stories that it
yeah,
uses, hasn't it?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
Daisy and Parkinson's and
yeah,
so on. They're well used. Yeah.
yeah. Those are some of the favorites. Yeah. So is it just that I'm not sticking with my own experience? Like I feel like I've been mindful or aware of what I'm experiencing my whole life, and it's not been fun. So I just need to do more of it or deeper of it. Like what am I doing differently now? What should I do differently to am I staying too much on the surface and going into stories, or like I feel like I have stayed with sensations a lot, but is it just
I suspect that
what would be
I don't
different now? Yeah,
know
sorry.
what this is, but I suspect that when you say you've been staying with sensations, that you're not actually staying with the sensation at all, that you're staying with your story about the sensation. But I don't want to,
Both.
that's not an accusation because I don't know what it is, but I suspect that's more likely the case.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's been a little bit of both, like sticking a bit with a label and a bit with a sensation. Okay, here it comes now. Okay, I'm feeling it. Okay, like
So do you get that when you said here it comes now? Do you get that you've got to have an idea about what it is that's coming? And that's a story. You've created the story. It's certainly you may have had a physical sensation that started it or that told you that you were going into the hell realm. But essentially, here it comes again is a story that's going to get you a big body clench, isn't it? We've got to
mm-hmm,
be prepared for this when it arrives and it's coming and it's a story. What told you that something was coming was a sensation, probably
mm-hmm,
some awareness that you recognized that might happen
mm-hmm,
on the way into these things. But the inevitability of it happening wasn't there until you said, here it comes. And then you made it inevitable. That story gave you something else to respond to react to. And of course, you're going to react to it defensively.
Maybe it would be helpful to stop saying you are creating a story, you are reacting offensively, you, because there is no you. The you is the story. The you is the reaction. The narrative, the constant narrative that is mm, interpreting and creating meaning about what is happening is told in a first person narrative that you think you are. And what's valuable here is to see that it's just a narrative. It's just a narrative that is constantly explaining or creating an explanation, creating meaning about what is going on, told from a first person perspective. And since you were young, you've always thought that that narrative was you, but it's not you, it's just thought. So every time the thought or the narrative is trying to find ways to understand or to find ways to explain, to feel better, all of that is just the narrative playing. It's not you.
That's interesting. I need to wrap my brain around it and see if I understand that again. So you're saying all the thoughts that say, I need to solve that, it's like speaking in my voice, but it's not me.
Yes.
That's fascinating and mind warping. Hold on. Wow. Okay. My mind is keeping on coming back to try and be like, okay, so which one is me and so what do I do when those things come up? But um
But there is no you.
so every single thought that says, okay, then I'll go behind those thoughts, like whatever thought arises in response to this, all of that is just the narrative and none of it is me.
Yes.
That's a little too weird. But you guys all seem sure of this. I don't know.
Well, you need to be sure of it and you need to
Yeah.
look what 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 makes it you. You've just confirmed that they are just thoughts. I mean, listening to you speak with Vince, you see that they're thoughts. So what about those thoughts makes a you? Where is the constant in those thoughts?
The constant is that they're occurring to me and also that they're repetitive and unique to me. And so like you're not having these crazy thoughts. I mean, thank God for you. But in other words, yeah, I mean, they're here, they're about me, they occur to me, they're pretty repetitive. That's what's constant about them, I guess.
So the conditioning is constant in this like it's telling the same story, so to speak, but the thoughts are completely different.
What's completely different? Sorry.
The thoughts, They're never the same. They might
Mm.
revolve around the same story, the storyline of me.
Each one that pops up is unique. There is
Mm.
new.
I mean, they seem to have recurring themes. How to
Mm.
fix this, how to solve this, what's wrong with me. I mean,
Question that comes up here, Tammy, is it seems like it is not possible for you to imagine that there is no self, that there is no you there somewhere. Is that accurate?
I guess because here I am. So what are you guys talking about? Like,
What do you mean?
I'm trying to get it, but
How do you know here you are? Here I
because
am.
you just spoke to me and I believe in you, and you said, "Here's Tammy." So you just told me that there's a me.
They were just words. There's responding here. There's hearing here. I don't know that you're real. You could be just
Because I haven't turned my camera on.
you could just be a computer voice. That's right.
It's time to turn your camera on, Tommy. Prove that you're real.
You see, it's like this. There is a black square on my computer screen with the word Tammy in it, and there's a little Tammy word down the bottom left hand corner, and then there's a voice, right, that I imagine comes out of that black square, but in fact it doesn't. It comes out of the speakers, and I imagine that there is a person using conventional language there, right? But I also know that that person is just a bundle of nerves and energy and stories and collected experiences, etc., right? And I know that no matter how much if I was to come and grab a hold of that body and put it on the surgeon's table and cut it up and in the finest little bits and look at every single bit under a microscope, I'm not going to find a self anywhere, am I? You know that, don't you?
What do you mean by a self? The
Well,
thoughts?
that's it. Do you think there's a self somewhere? Do you think there's a little man in there running the show or a little woman?
I was
Is
going to say the person
it,
who's contemplating your words, but
or
you're saying that's just thoughts arising?
is it conceivable that your body knows how to breathe and eat and walk and do all of the things that your body does? Is it conceivable that your body knows how to do that? It doesn't require management.
Well, to me, when someone's dead, the body doesn't move. So the person was in there and the body moved. When the person's not in there, the body's dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's a tricky one, that one. So
But what makes it a person and not life animating the body?
But what is life? Then you're just instead of person, you're putting a label life. In other words, what's the difference?
I think we
Well,
have to accept at this stage that medical science doesn't know what's not there when the body's dead.
Hmm.
There was a period where they used to weigh the body and to see if there was any difference in weight after they died, and people wanted to see the soul leaving the
I
body.
think they said, someone told me it's like 0 point something grams it weighs or something. They weighed it. I don't know.
Yeah,
But what were you saying, Marius, about life?
I wanted to turn your objection back at you. So you said, okay, we're just switching to life. But
Hmm.
Okay, so let me turn that back at you. Why isn't it life? Why is it a self?
But no, I'm just saying that word. What is life? What do you mean by life is animating it?
Okay, so what is a self? I'm not going to give you your mind an answer. I want you to look.
I just don't know where to look because it's invisible. Like thought processes are
Yeah, but
invisible. You can't.
you're sure that there is a self there. You seem to be sure at least. So locate it.
I don't know where to look. It's not a physical thing, so I don't know. You want me to locate it in my mind because it's.
No, but I mean, since you're so sure that there is a self there, there must be a reason. There must be some proof that there is a self there. So I'm just asking you to present that proof.
I guess that's the only proof I have. You look around, a body's either dead or there's someone in it saying, I should go to work, I should wear clothes. If you live in Africa, you don't wear clothes, you wear a loincloth. I don't know. There's in every place the person decides what will be or is affected by others and goes along like a sheep. I don't know.
All of that, isn't that based on thought?
You're saying that the actions of the body happen based on thought?
No, but everything that you just said now, all the words, aren't those words thoughts?
Yeah. But the body's moving around is not thoughts, or is it? I don't know what you think, but there's bodies moving around and there's people in them. You think there's no people, it's just bodies moving around and saying things?
Again, I'm asking you.
You think everyone is like chimpanzees, just moving around and wearing clothes? And
What do you mean? There's no
I,
self in a chimpanzee?
I don't know.
so you think
All I
people
know is that
moving
the
around,
self that I thought I was is thought. Is thought looping with sensations. Sensations looping back to thought, confirming themselves.
I do get that cycle. I mean, I'm very aware of the waves and the patterns of the thoughts, and then sensations happen and then thoughts. I'm aware of that, but I don't get the leap to there is no self. Hold on, let me think.
So that there is a self as we are, you know, where we are now in the discussion, that there is a self is only an assumption because you haven't presented any proof yet. So it's just an assumption, a belief that you've carried your whole life thinking that the narrative and the thoughts is you, is a self. And then I'm asking you to prove why that is a self, how that is a self, and not just
Because
thoughts.
why else would it be happening and to whom? In other
Why,
words,
the concept of a whom
the fact that
is that
there's me that knows that it's happening, there's someone that knows. A tree doesn't know about my thoughts. I know about my thoughts. Like there's someone that's experiencing them. Like, and we can talk about it here. So clearly we're
why
both
does it
saying
have to
something.
be why does it have to be um, a separate thing knowing thought? Why can't there just be a thought about knowing?
There could be a thought, but if no one knew about it, did it make a sound in the forest or whatever? In other words,
No, 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 no. I'm saying the thought is the knowing.
it makes no sense. What are you saying? Let me think. But 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 no one else reports having thoughts. Trees don't say I have a thought. I say I have a thought. Who would know it and who would report it to you if not me? Like, what is
I don't.
happening right now? Is it not a me telling you about something that a me experiences?
No, it is a body with a nervous system and a mind that is conditioned responding to the same on the other side, seemingly.
So do you think the real you, Marius, is sitting and observing all this? How, like, who are you then? What are you?
There is no you.
And so confusing.
Yes, this is a critical point for you, Tammy. This is a really, really critical point. What I would like to really highlight for you is that an assumption that logic is a process of thought and it has no tangibility other than thought. So when you say something that logically there must be somebody here talking, that's bullshit. That's not logical at all. But I get that you take it as logical and you take it as irrefutable logic that there must be, right? Must be. That's an assumption. That's a logical conclusion that there must be. Well, there mustn't be. That's not the case at all.
But I'm here and I feel my lips talking and I'm hearing you guys and seeing you guys. So
Yeah,
is that not happening?
that's happening. But when you describe there is seeing, there is hearing happening. Absolutely, no problems at all there. But then to make the jump that says that therefore there must be a person doing it, that's bullshit. That's not the case. That's not good logic.
But who is knowing
There is
this and who is feeling this and who is reporting this? I
can knowing exist? Does it have to be a person knowing it, or is there just experiencing of knowing? We won't get into what the knowing is, but what I'm saying is all of the things that I used to say were happening because a self was here for them to happen to,
yeah.
they still happen with no self here. So for me, it's not at all difficult to accept that talking happens, thinking happens, feeling happens, and none of that requires a self. If there was a self running the show, that self would have control. And if that self was really did have control, why would you burden yourself with the hell realm of thought that you do? Why would you do that to yourself? Oh, I say you've got a faulty self, have you? You've got a self that's
Yeah.
control. Right, gotcha. Okay. Ah, yeah, you're in trouble now then.
My
Hmm.
thoughts exactly.
Yeah. I get that, and I give it to you that it appears, and it's certainly from the old way of looking at things. It's pretty solid that it appears that there's somebody there running the show. but that doesn't stand up to even the slightest bit of scrutiny. If you had
But also,
control, why would you ever have a bad thought? Why would you ever feel bad if you had control?
but why would life make people suffer with bad thoughts? That makes no sense either.
Well, life is not a thing that has control. Life doesn't have control. Life is just a way of describing circumstances that appear.
That's bullshit also. But okay, you, the real answer is we don't know.
Mm.
Like, we don't know why this whole appearance is here. We don't know why the world is here, why there's the appearance of people and thoughts and suffering and non suffering. We don't know.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm still trying to find the people that know, and on the top of the Himalayas, they wrap themselves in the cold wool and all of that. But
But how
or
could they know?
Yeah.
or
How
some
could anybody
curanderos
know?
in Chile or something, or there's always those secret people on the mountaintops that must know with the goats or something. But
Let me tell you, Tammy, keep away from anybody that says they know.
mm.
Do you
So everyone
see
is just
that
human like
all
me, and no one knows.
thoughts is a construct, Tammy?
But who constructed it?
I don't know.
Like, some first person had an original thought and then decided to foist it on all of us.
Well, you
You're
can
just
see
saying,
how your thoughts are trained,
Yeah.
can't you?
Thoughts are made up. Concepts are made up.
by who?
Before,
And can we make up better ones? In other words,
yeah, you can make up any concept, new concept you want.
so is that the game, to make up better concepts to stop suffering? But
So, so before the concept of suffering existed, what was here? Before the meaning of suffering or the concept of suffering was invented, how was that experienced?
I guess just experience. Someone would cry, you'd feel pain, you'd try and help out, you feel pain, like just the stuff happening and without the labeling of it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty sucky, but
Do you see that putting a
sucky is a label,
judgment?
yes, but
Yeah, but even putting a judgment on what is happening is effectively claiming ownership of what is happening, is implying that there is a self owning the experience,
owning like I could do anything about it, or that I caused it, or that I
that
can
it has
solve it.
anything to that it has anything to do about you.
You mean the fact that pain arises has nothing to do with me,
Yes,
meaning that I didn't do anything wrong, I didn't cause it, I can't solve it. It's just something that's appearing. It has nothing to do with anything that I do.
yes. And as
Again,
soon
A, is
as you
that
have an
true? And
opinion
B,
on
that's
it,
sucky. Yeah. I have
then
some
it's your
very choice
problem.
opinions. Yeah. But so maybe this, like,
I've said this to you before, Tammy, but I think your main, your core issue is that you're coming at all of this from a perspective of wanting to change your experience from relieving pain. I think
hell
we all,
yeah.
or most of us, came into that. But if you're going to approach this from that perspective, then you're already trapped because when life inevitably will show you that it's always going to change. It's always going to be some pain, some pleasure, some whatever. And you're fixed on this needing to be always pleasurable, always comfortable, never painful, then you're just trapped in this narrative about how do I get out of it? How do I fix it? Claiming ownership over life that is just happening. Awakening is not about fixing anything. It's about seeing clearly what is.
Clearly, you mean, well, I was going to say you mean without labels, but then you would probably say even when labels arise, seeing the effect of that, just seeing all the things that are happening.
Seeing clearly that there is no self here. There is nobody in control. There is nobody at the center of experience. There is nobody owning sensations or emotions or anything like that. There is just life happening, always constantly changing. That all meaning, all interpretation overlaid on raw experience is just fantasy. It's not wrong, but it's just fantasy.
I ask a question here?
Mhm,
Um, am I right in thinking I've heard you guys talk about a sense of self, like an illusory sense of self?
mhm,
There, I mean, maybe that is something that confuses. I know it confuses me at times that it doesn't seem like a thought, but it seems
mhm,
like there is a sense of looking out of these eyes, of receiving thinking, receiving sounds. So what do you guys say about that? This sense of self. How do we look at that? I mean, I can see that it doesn't have agency, but it does seem like there is a
mhm.
sense of self.
Well, can you describe how that sense is experienced?
I think maybe a bit similar to what Tammy was saying. It's like an experience of being at the center of my world, where sounds are experienced, where sights are seen, where thoughts are experienced.
Mhm. Mm, But even closer than that, how is it actually felt?
Well, I don't think there is a kind of, when you say feeling, do you mean like tactile feelings or like emotions? What kind of feeling are you
No,
talking
more
about?
sensations.
Sensations? No, I
So
don't think that there.
usually,
I don't.
usually this ties into this felt sense that are some people report feeling that they're behind the eyes. Some people report feeling that they're located in the chest. Some might report that it's just a quiet hum in the whole body. That
Yeah,
what's most people
for
kind of
me,
feel like is a sense of self.
So just to shortcut it here, if Jed, you were to take that sense of self using your sense of vision, your eyes, you're saying you get it right. Obviously, you can say quite clearly that seeing or looking is happening, right? how does that tie into a self, except by mental logic?
So the sense of being at the center of receiving all the senses. I mean, it doesn't seem, to be honest, with hearing,
You
it
could use
seems a
Siri
bit
on your
more.
car after connecting Apple CarPlay.
Um, Say that question again, Vince.
So you go. There's a sense of self because I'm seeing things here, and you can see that quite clearly. There's this case of the eyes are receiving, there is seeing is happening. That's pretty clear. You can describe that as what's going on there. But then we have to go off into fairyland to say that therefore I conclude that it's me that's doing it, or that there's a self, or even just a sense of self. But it's not a sense of self. There is just a sense. But with that sense, right, that sense of seeing, of looking, there is a story that says that it must be a me that's doing it. And that's what gives that sensation credibility as a sense of self. And that's what gives the idea that there's a self credibility. So it's a circular thing, but it's a logic connection between the actual sensations and the idea of it happening to a self. It is only an idea that it's happening to a self.
So, I mean, maybe I'm confusing. I know you don't like to talk about awareness here, but
I'm okay
isn't
about
that what,
that.
I mean, isn't that what the Advaita folks are saying, that awareness is
Oh, well,
just
see
the
again,
experiencing
you're
of
talking about a story, aren't you? Right. So,
well, that's the way I mean,
yeah,
that seems to be the way I'm experiencing it, of being aware of seeing.
being aware, there is being aware of seeing, no problems. Got that? Yes. Right. Where's the I come into it?
Well, I guess that awareness,
No,
that
say
awareing,
being aware. Don't say awareness. Say being aware.
that
Right.
being aware
Yeah. That's
is
actual,
my
isn't
sense of self. Yeah,
it? Yeah.
I guess that's what I've come to understand to be myself, I suppose,
Mm.
when I'm
In the traditional sense, that's perfectly
yeah.
reasonable. Yeah. But we find that that's very confining, and we're able to cut those bonds and liberate ourselves by recognizing that sensations happen.
So the bonds are about a agency within that. Is that right?
Well, that's becomes part of it, doesn't it? Yes.
So the mind wants to have somewhere to land, something to identify with, right? So it finds, you follow the Advaita route and you land in awareness. But what we're talking about here is that there is no final landing, but the mind almost can't handle that. It can't handle the free fall of not being a someone, even if it's that someone is awareness. It needs a conclusion. It needs to rest in, okay, now I understand.
Yep.
This is the answer. But there is no conclusion.
It just seems to be verified by experience. That's what
Mm.
I don't see. I haven't seen anything.
Well, you say again, here's a tricky one again. You say it seems to be validated by awareness. And again, it's the story
Experience.
component of that that does it. Right. So, or let's for a start, what is validation? You know, somebody tells me I'm right. That's validation. Right. What's telling you you're right? Another story, another thought. That's what
Just seems to be
validation
the
is.
most accurate. It seems to be the most accurate description of my experience, I suppose.
Hmm.
It just
And
seems to be what I'm
that's why it
experiencing.
feels right for the mind, because it is a description, right? It's something that fits. It can't accept a non-description. Before description happens, before description is thought, description is concepts.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there.
So it's really valuable to really see this tendency for the mind to have a landing place. Just recognize it as a tendency, as a movement of the mind, as a way to create illusory safety, a place to land.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that that's a tendency, and that there's a trap there. At the same time, it seems that we are kind of trying to understand something here, and I know that you. Well, I think I've also heard it said in these meetings that understanding isn't where it's at.
Yeah, it's the same thing that I just pointed out. It's trying to package something that is unpackageable for the mind's comfort.
So there's a really interesting one that pops up here for that, and that is that when we it's almost like we're saying we'd be better off without a mind. And and we kind of would in the beginning because the mind is where all the trouble comes from. But once we break free of this cage that has been built with the mind, it takes on a totally different job and works differently. And your experience of mind will be different to what it is now. Right? And it won't offer you things to believe. It'll only offer you descriptions about what's actually happening if it's appropriate. Sometimes it's not appropriate, but it still will. But it's, yeah.
It's like I noticed that I want to defend, this position, and and I said, yeah, but you, Vince, you say that it's stories all the way down. That there's only stories,
Yeah.
and maybe we get a more accurate story. Um, but without any stories whatsoever,
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying
you
about
can.
the difference between being the stories that the mind builds a cage out of, and then a more appropriate use of the mind, and they are different. So they're still stories, but they're more appropriate stories. But don't worry about that. That's something for you to experience. Yeah.
I can see that it's like I can sense approaching a storyless experiencing, And what's happening is my kind of, I guess, my struggles with life. So basically, at the moment, I'm what I've been doing the last few days is trying to find a way to view life that lets me off the hook for things that I feel shame and guilt about, like I've failed in some ways. And I'm trying to see that, oh, well, that's all ridiculous because it's just all life happening and I have no agency. And that, in a way, I guess, is just me trying to get a better story where
Mm,
there's no guilt and shame and responsibility. And that's so it's hard to let go of all stories because I want the one story that lets me off the hook for things.
yeah. That lets you off the hook that the other stories have put you on.
Yeah, and I can kind of I can get I think I can get close to it's like I'm kind of
Yeah.
looking at a storyless reality, and then this bit keeps just is at the edge pushing in to say yeah, but I want a relief from my bad stories, and
Mm.
no story.
But
It kind of
who is
does give
saying
relief.
that?
Sorry.
Who is saying that? Who wants
Yeah, it's the
relief?
pain. It's the pain. It's the believing in the other stories that wants the relief. And
Yeah,
I
it's the
mean,
story that wants relief.
yeah. And when I approach this storyless reality, then the other stories just come back in and say, yeah, but I'm going to come back at some point. So you'd better have a story to defend against me or something.
Mm. Again, the issue there is just ownership of the story. So it's the story talking about wanting another story, about defending against the other stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a kind of a really tricky, very subtle, but very distinct and definite something about my thoughts, my opinions, my words are more valuable than anybody else's because they're mine, they're special. Something about the ownership of them that puts them separate from anybody else's words. Anybody else's words are just words out there, but my words are special. Should listen to my words. They're very important. Don't nobody else's but mine. Yeah. It's kind of a weird feeling, but yeah, and we have to be a little bit subtle to recognize that there's that specialness about stuff that comes out of us. Yeah. I mean, my shit is more valuable than anybody else's too. It doesn't smell like other people's.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, I think, Vince. They certainly, my thoughts certainly seem to demand more attention and,
Mm. Consideration
yeah,
and yeah, all of that.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's the ownership thing. That specialness is the ownership thing. It's but it's very subtle. It kind of hides, not really obvious until somebody tries to take it away from you. Then watch the defenses come into gear. Yeah, that's if you're attached to it.
But then who is the me that those thoughts are occurring to? Right? If they're occurring
Again,
to me and
you're
not to
assuming a
Marius.
center. You're assuming that they're occurring to someone when they are just occurring,
But
and the
they're but
someone is
I
built in the occurrence.
but some thoughts occur to me and not to you. So doesn't that make us distinct people that are aware of distinct thoughts? Sorry, Jed, were you in the middle of something? Okay.
No, no, it's good, Tammy. You take it.
Yeah, there's a special name that I can't think of for that kind of argument, Tammy, that says they're they're occurring to me and not to you, therefore they're mine. See, it's based on story to start with, that they're occurring to others and not to you, or they're occurring to you and not to others. So as a description, that would be valid to say Tammy is aware of thoughts happening to Tammy, and I'm not aware of those thoughts. At the next step, therefore, as soon as you say the word therefore, it's a logical conclusion and it doesn't hold water. It might be accurate, but it's still just concept.
Even that there is another is an assumption. You don't know that there is somebody here having different thoughts. The only thing you know, or the only thing that can be confirmed in your experience, is your experience. But you're assuming that there is something outside of your awareness.
It has to be an
Can you
assumption.
Hmm?
can you say that again? And also, Jed, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for you to go. I was just interjecting a question. Please come back. I don't want to.
No, honestly, Tammy, it's perfect. I've got to start doing stuff now. I've got to go to work soon. I'm still
Okay.
listening there. It's good.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, Jed.
Sorry about.
I said that the idea of there being someone else having a different experience is just an assumption. There's no way for you to confirm that there is somebody else out there having a different experience.
You're saying you don't assume there's a world out there of people having experiences. You're saying all I know is that here I am, Tammy. Um, and then Marius comes up and says he's having a thought, but I don't know if that actually exists, the Marius having a thought, or it's just my experience that tells me, oh, now I have an experience of a Marius cubicle saying a thought.
I don't have any of those thoughts, but I don't assume that there is. Like the it's a void is a void of assumption. Is probably the closest I can get to answering um, your question. There isn't a frame saying that there is or there isn't.
A world
There's
out there?
just responding.
You don't think about if there's a world and galaxies and people. You don't think about this world existing, you mean?
Hmm.
So, like, you could never be a scientist because you don't necessarily believe that there's planets and stuff?
Yeah, that will be really difficult for me.
Wow, that's wild. And are you happy with where you are?
I'm not unhappy. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm not. Like but it's not any of those things.
Hmm.
To say that I'm happy or I'm not is a putting a meaning on this qualifying experience.
And it's important, Tammy, I think, to consider that I didn't hear Marius say he was denying the existence of other planets.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist as a.
From his perspective, it's just a story. So this is one of the things I've been trying to kind of get you to grok, and that is that the difference between what is actual in your experience and what is about that or about bits that hang off that or that or what is about what that might be about even, you know, so we can go many levels there. But the difference between what is actual and what is about what is actual is a really, really critical point for you. If you can get that dividing line, even if it happens, it can continue to happen, right? I feel this. I wonder if I'm sick. That's about. What is this? Let's go back to this and not worry about what is about. Right? If you can draw the line between those two so that you recognize that when you step off a description of what is actual into a world of make believe, that's a critical point for you. And that hell realm exists in the what it's about world, not what is actual. That's not to say that what is actual is always going to be pleasant or always going to be feel sweet. It can be pretty shitty too, but it is only what it is. It's not what it's about. The meaning you add to it. Kill meaning. Kill meaning. There, that's a good mantra for you at the moment. Kill meaning.
Yeah, and I guess what Marius was saying about when you're saying kill meaning, it's like Marius was saying about that self-confirming loop between sensation and thought.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so I guess because I know that on the one hand is why I try to even more solve it because I'm like I try to figure out if the sensation is caused by a thought and which thought is it and how do I solve it? So it's like it keeps me in
Yeah.
the loop
Away
even
you go.
knowing that.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering is this sensation actual or is it a response to a thought? And
So if you stopped before at the first d- diversion off into story, then it would be quite clear about what was actual for you, that sensation. But after you've indulged in the story for a little bit, it's no longer clear what was actually happening because you've added to responses to the story as well.
right, and I don't think I'm ever clear. I think I'm always living in some kind of story and the belief seems so many like it seems impossible that I'll ever be
Yes. So in the
not living
beginning,
in
That
a
is also
belief.
a
But yeah.
story.
What?
That is also a story.
This is true.
That it's impossible.
Yeah.
mm, And so at this stage, we're not talking about stopping those stories. We're just talking about recognizing them for what they are. And things will change as a result of that. But even more fundamental is recognizing that for a story to exist, you have to give credibility to another story, and that is that there's a self that they're happening to.
Mhm.
So that's the fundamental story, the basic story, and that is that there's a self there, and it's all happening to a self. And it can't be proved in any way other than by thought.
But whether or not it's happening to a self, it's happening and I know it and I feel it. So I'm
Right.
suffering.
It is different. See, so what is happening? The it that you're saying it is happening, right? Before story, that's one thing. After story, it becomes something else. And that's the trick. We got to stop before the story takes us away to get the closest to the original that we can get, and then we can do something with that.
No, but what she's saying is that there is a knower of the story.
Hmm.
She's saying that there is a me there.
A
Mm,
feeler, an experiencer. Yeah.
mm.
I don't know. Can you? I usually say the feeler and the thought is the same thing. It's baked into each other. It's part of the same cake. It's not two separate things. It's not one entity feeling a sensation.
Say that again.
Um, there's nobody having a thought. There is a thought about somebody having a thought. There is only the thought. But you're assuming that there is somebody who there needs to be a somebody to have a thought. I'm saying there is only thought, and the thought
But
includes a somebody.
I guess then who's knowing about the thought? There has to be someone that
The
knows
thought,
it. Like if a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, then no one would know that it fell. Like, how am I reporting to you that a thought is happening? There's me that's knowing about it. If there was just a thought floating around in space, no one would know it and no one would feel the effects of it and no one could report it.
Not true.
even from a logical perspective, I don't get that, Tammy.
Because it's not just a thought, it's I know it and I'm telling you it.
There is a thought that is expressed through sound. There's no somebody expressing the thought.
But both you and I just heard that thought. So two people now experience that thought, or should I say
That's an
five people?
assumption again.
It's an assumption that you and I are hearing these words now?
That I'm on the other side hearing these words,
Uh-huh.
and that there is an I on this end and an I on that end.
So it's me in an echo chamber just hearing words myself.
Well, I went off into two different
Mm,
um, layers there,
metaphors.
so I don't want to confuse you. Let's stick with the self.
So Marius is
Pause
there.
it. Yeah, yeah, go on.
So Marius is there, and he's hearing sounds, and he's applying his experience to those sounds, and they're turning into words, and in that they're carrying some kind of message. So that's Marius's experience. Your intention might have been for him to experience a particular message, but because of his experience in life, there's no way of knowing that it's, in fact, it's very unlikely to be the exact message that you sent out. His interpretation of those sounds is going to mean that he's going to end up with a slightly different message to what you intended. Your story presumes that he's going to pick up exactly what your thoughts mean and what they're pointing to. So even though he's confirming that he's hearing sounds and he's kind of making some meaning out of that, uh, that's an organism hearing the sound of the tree falling in the forest, right? And you're making the sound of the tree fall by talking. Not
Now you went on a third layer, Vince.
well, I was just trying to break up the thing of Sammy Tammy saying something and you hearing exactly what she said. You know,
Yeah,
that
I get what you're doing. It's just what she started out with thinking that there is a self there and here.
and
So
here,
I
yeah.
and then I then I went on a second layer and then you on the third layer. Let's try to keep it
Mm.
where Tammy was coming from. Um,
So here's the thing. This is so one of my memories of going to Liberation Unleashed after I woke up. One of the very first questions they asked me was, "Is an experiencer necessary for experiencing to exist?" And it was really quite clear to me. There was no question in my mind. I immediately said, "No, no. Experiencing can happen without an experiencer or anything to experience. It's just experiencing happening." That's a way of describing sensations here in this body, in this organism. There was no question. Now that was so clear for me. There was no question about it, and I immediately went straight to that when I was asked that question. But you're saying there has to be somebody to have the experience. Experience can't exist without a person to experience it, without a self. So how do
And
we?
and not only that, here we all are experiencing and sharing our experience. So I don't, but
but so let's say that is correct, that
mhm.
that there are people here sharing different experiences. Why, how does that prove that there is a self, a constant person in each of us?
But
Why
don't they
can't there
say, who
just
is the
be,
you that always existed since you were a baby and exists now? That is your true self. And yeah, I'm the one who's here experiencing everything that I've experienced since I was a kid. I can recall all the memories. I can tell you, report back the sensations.
yeah, but okay, so what, first of all, you don't recall memories, you construct them. So memories are always going to be different every time you pull a memory comes up, right? And but what is a memory?
A thought and an image?
Yeah, happening now. How does that prove a self? That only what that proves is a thought and an image happening now. Where in that is a self? This is how the mind creates the illusion of continuity. It takes thoughts happening now, labeled memories, and then pulls a thread through the memories so they seem to be sticking together. And it also projects into the future, which is also thoughts, imaginations happening now. They're just thoughts happening now. That doesn't prove a self.
But what about the whole life? Like we have to work and eat and go and speak to people and all of that. So what is all that?
Well, right now, that is imagination. Right now, there is just this.
So do you ever use imagination to be like, okay, I'm going to plan a trip or plan my work or plan my wedding? Or do you go into that and plan your life? Or you discount it as imagination?
Uh, Planning can happen, but there's more like in an intention setting
A
than
what? Sorry?
detailed plan. Intention setting
Mm-hmm.
rather than like I don't have really detailed plans anymore.
There's a very big difference between a story that's held very lightly and recognized as a story and may not happen or whatever, and a story that feels like a cage. Two different experiences entirely.
And even that question, Tammy, is kind of almost bypassing probably 95% of your imagination activity uh, and focusing on the 5% that's just practical thought. It's no problem with that. The problem, the kind of the illusory self problem that we're talking about here is the imagination um, that is telling the story about a someone.
And held tightly and believed and being prepared to defend it and fight for it and so on. Yeah.
So what of my experience right now is real? There's a body here. It has to survive and live. It goes to eat. It goes to speak to people and laugh and take a walk and sunshine and all the things that we need.
None of that. That's all story.
That's all story. Now I'm confused.
So what is your experience right now, or some of your experience, just as an example?
The body's sitting and talking to take
No,
care
no.
of.
See, that's about again. What's about again? I want to hear pressure in the bum, feet feeling a sensation where they're sitting on the floor. That's what I want to hear, not about anything, not about a body. There is no such thing as a body. That's another story. that you use to include the bits you know about, the bits that you don't know about, the bits that you can see and the bits you can't see. You include the back of your head and your liver in that story, the body. No, so your experience right now is what? Just your experience.
Yeah, for the moment of here, but then we have to function. You know what I mean?
No, another story. So you really give yourself a hard time with this. I'm asking you to tell me what your experience of the body is right now. What's your experience? What is the experiencing that you become aware of now when you focus on experiencing? What is that right now?
I'm hearing sounds from a speaker, sounds from my fridge, looking around, there's stuff, there's
You're taking, I'm hearing a sound, and as soon as you say from my fridge or from the speaker, right, you're adding a story to it, and you're no longer in touch with the sound. What's the quality of the sound? Does it make your eardrums vibrate? Can you feel that happening?
yeah.
No, so the sound is even before you make that sound into a word and apply meaning to it, it's just a sound. To say it's from the speaker or from the fridge, you get away from the sound into the story about the sound.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm
Those,
I'm not. I feel like I'm being a school teacher wagging my finger at you, but I'm not. I'm wanting you to recognise the departure point where
mhm.
you leave actual experiencing and go into stories, and you're so good at that that it happens seamlessly. You don't even realise you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm constantly in the words, but so is you guys' experience more like just you're you're very, very attuned, like you're like immersed in sensation and like sounds and body sensations? Is that what you're saying? To be like very, very just like a wash and a bathing of sensation?
It's not what I experience here. Mm.
From the way you just said it, Tammy, is at least what what comes up here is that would need the attention to be directed into sensations,
Mm-hmm.
which it isn't. It's more of a relaxed attention, not pointed at anything, unless so- unless it is. But but more often than not, it's just not pointed at anything. It's relaxed. So I can't say, I mean, like there's an immersion in sensations. And
Yeah.
honestly, it to say that it's sensations in the body is also
Mm.
too far.
It's a wrong question. So you're asking Marius, and you're comparing yourself to Marius, and that's a stupid thing to do to compare. To start with, it's doesn't. There's no value in that, and secondly, Marius is a. Oh, I hesitate to say this. Marius is awake, and so his perception of the world is a world away from yours. So don't look.
Right, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
other
yeah.
words,
But you'll
but
get there, but not in one leap. That's all I'm saying. Don't.
mhm. Because I'm hearing a lot of direction to on different things that I'm listening to, and also here also about going into the texture of experience, like to go very deeply into sensation and the nature of the physical sensations, experiences, sounds, and the texture of it, and explore it very deeply. And I'm like, is that? But you're saying no, you're not living with putting a huge spotlight on that, but But Vince,
But
you're
for
saying
you,
maybe that's
it's
a
appropriate.
transition. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a transitional thing. It's a movement from one place to another place, and it's in the middle. But so, but yeah, so once you grok what we're talking about there, the difference between what is actual and what is story, and you can start to see when the story comes in, and then you can start to see how that story affects you. Well, that you take that cage off yourself, right? Then you're open for the next step, which is on the way towards what Marius is experiencing. Right? And you'll be your version of it. It won't be the same as his anyway, but nevertheless, it's too big a jump to go from where you are to where he is in one go. Although that's possible, you certainly could do that, but yeah, generally speaking, to imagine it is impossible. So I'd say,
Mhm. And was that part of your experience, Marius, going deeply into sensation and stuff, or was that not something was that not your path or whatever?
I guess mm, it wasn't a big part of the path here. I guess I did it at some point because I didn't want to feel what I was feeling, and I thought that that would solve and dissolve the feelings. But it was later seen that that was just an avoidance. Um, I was still a self trying to go into sensations. Um, I get the logical, I don't know if it's valuable, but I get the logical argument for why it can be valuable in the sense that it can get you out of the mind and into the body, which if you're really mind identified, I guess could be effective. Um,
Yeah, I guess I was telling Vince that it seems to work on meetings, but not when I'm alone. But yeah.
yeah, I, I, you know, I don't, I can't, I'm not claiming that the way I approach this is right, but I probably approach this more directly, or let's say, um, I focus more on seeing the self for what it is and what it's not. All the other stuff is seems to me it's the self doing work. It keeps the self going. So it's not going to, from my perspective, it's not going to do anything until the self is to seen for what it is. But that is just my perspective on this.
And how do you go about seeing that?
I, I, well, we've been kind of pointing back to that um, this large chunk of this meeting to
Hmm.
look at what you believe is the self, to look at the narrative that is telling a story in first person, that is just made of thoughts, that is what you think is you, and then look at that and question it. Is that you, or is it thought? What makes that thought or that thought train a you? We've been looking at memories as well. Like many would say that, the memories is proof of a person who has lived a life. And then I pointed out to you that the memory is a thought construct happening now. It doesn't prove anything other than a thought happening now. So looking
So you go
closely
by
at,
questioning the mind. Hmm.
mm, And the mind wants to find external answers, right? It wants an explanation. It wants answers from somebody else out there. It doesn't want to look directly. And I'm kind of telling you to stop, try to find external answers and start looking directly at what wants these answers.
I guess I don't know how to do that because when I read all these questions about look, is there a self? Is there a self? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know where to look. I don't know how to look. It doesn't compute anywhere like how to do that. I don't know what that means, but
Yeah. So take any question that you want to know and acknowledge that that question is a thought. See, look at what is that question made of?
what does it mean made of?
How does the question exist? Like in what form?
You meaning that it's a thought?
Yeah. All questions, all narratives, all interpretation, the construction of meaning, all of that is just thought. And that needs to be acknowledged, needs to be seen for what it is. It's thought, and there is an assumption that the thought belongs to somebody rather than just being thoughts.
Yeah, and I guess both of you are pointing to the same thing to me in different ways. Vince is saying just get out of it all and come back into your senses and realize what's thought, and you're saying question it and see that it's thought. And I think I do see what you both are saying. The thing is that I still think what you pointed out is that it's all happening to a me. So maybe that's the issue. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll send you an email later, Tammy, with an exercise that might clarify that one for you. Mm. But do you get that since you were very, very young that you've been told and you've experienced stuff that is about you, about Tammy? And so you end up with all these characteristics. You've spent a lifetime collecting facts about Tammy, right? Tammy likes chocolate ice cream. Tammy doesn't like fierce-looking dogs, etc., etc. There's a book full of these stories about Tammy. Now get this: a story about Tammy. Right? As soon as you say it's about you, it takes on a special meaning, right? And so what we've got is we've got a collection of these stories that we react to. We respond to these stories when they're triggered, right?
Mhm.
So that's how you end up with this idea that there's a self there, because all of these stories for a lifetime, a book full of stories, all points to Tammy being the owner of, being the perpetrator of, or being the object of those stories. So, of course, you've had years and years of practice to believe that. But show me something more than a story about Tammy. I can see that there are lots of stories about Tammy. That's easy to see. But is there anything more that makes up that self called Tammy? Or is that all there is? Just about 5,678 stories about Tammy's preferences and likes and looks and everything else.
So I like that. And I think, and it ties into me to what Marius was saying before about, I think what you're saying now of there's stories about me and then I respond to those stories, and what you said before about, responding to the thoughts, and all these loops are just arising and never ending cycles of hell. But
You got it. Beautiful. That's it. They're just arising. Yes.
right, but they're happening to a me. In other words, I'm the one
No,
who's aware of them.
no, that's an assumption. Prove it. You can get as close as to say that organism experiences these things. But you can't get any
Yeah.
closer to a me than that, can you? Oh, so you're that organism, are you? Is it you that's that body? But we can have a dead body and there's no you there.
What's the difference? Is that just semantics, saying it's an organism or a me or life? The point is, here I am, la la la, here I am. I'm the one experiencing
No,
it. Like, what
not,
is this?
it's not just semantics. It's a critical point, right? Because we're 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 going under the assumption that the body is tangible. There's nothing tangible about a self, is there?
If you give me your email address, Tammy, I can send you something that might be of value to you, if you want.
Okay. Should I write it?
I'll send it to him.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I need to go. It's lovely being with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
What do you reckon, Tim?
What do I reckon?
You had thoughts
great.
about what could help Tammy, didn't you?
No, I was listening to yours and Marius's invitations, whatever.
Arguments.
Well, no, there was no, they're just like finer points. But okay, this is what happened. I mean, actually, Vince said something about what happened to him. And kind of, my memory is just gone, but I think Marius touched on it. But the point for me was, I'm saying me, but you know what I mean. I'm not going to go into that nonsense. What happened was, that using the same sort of inquiries, almost to the letter that both Vince and Marius have done, but they've done it in a kind of, I mean, I guess you could say Marius is more direct. That's not really correct, but there are different ways in, okay? And I got completely into a tight corner, if you like, right? I just couldn't find the self. There was experiencing any of this. All possible outs had disappeared. All the sort of nooks and crannies that I might have argumentatively crawled through or tried to had disappeared. It's like, and there was this kind of, oh, this is it. No bright lights, no mystical experience, no, I feel peaceful all the time. No, because it wasn't an I who could feel peaceful. It's just, it was just, this. It was really simple in that kind of Zen sense, I suppose. I can't know that because I'm not a Zen practitioner. But it just became very clear when it was time. And I think this is, Vince touched on this. It was just time. There was no I there to make that happen or predict that timing. But looking back, I'd known it intellectually for some years, and I'd had a lot of doubt when I think I actually was awake, if you know what I mean. I'd had a lot of that was the only impediment. Because what I was doing, like I think you've kind of implied, Tammy, I was looking at other people's experience. This one says this happened to that one out there, and they were studying whatever. So maybe if I tried a bit of that, and this is the whole searching period over the 35 years to get it. I mean, if I look back, I don't, I don't and don't. So, but I said a lot. I'm not going to go into my story because I listened back and I did that a bit the other week, and it's just stuff. This is what happened to me. But something, yeah. So what can I say? How do you feel about all this? I know you've been sharing, Tammy, but I mean, do you find it confusing? Do you?
I do find it confusing.
Okay.
I feel like when I started hearing about this kind of stuff and following people like Adyashanti, like years ago on YouTube, and Rupert Spira, who you remind me of a little bit.
God.
Maybe just the British thing, but
Sorry. Yeah,
I would hear it, or Byron Katie, some people, some parts of this sound like logical, like positive thinking or disengaging from this or that. Like there's all kinds of, and then people go into stuff where I'm like, but there's no experiencer, and then I'm lost. In other words, so I'm like, will I ever get it? Because when I started doing this, it's like the success rates of Zen or whatever meditation, which I was never very into those things. I was always just into the cessation of suffering. I was looking for some kind of peace. And the success rates of this stuff, whoever gets enlightened, it's like once in a lifetime if you're lucky, after 5 million like whatever lifetimes. And so to
well,
me it's like, could it really happen? And then I happened upon you guys a few months ago, and it's like all these people that you can actually talk to that are awake. It's like blowing my mind. And I'm like, can I even open my mouth and speak in the presence of these people? And I'm like, okay, here I
yeah.
go. And then it's like, can it
Sorry.
really happen? And then it's like, so maybe it could happen. And then the other, and then even if, and let's say I'm really really dense and it'll never happen for me because I'm some unique kind of I don't know what, then is it still valuable to do all these things like going into sensation and stuff? Or is it, as I was heard, all these spiritual cul-de-sacs where for years you could spend time wasting your time on stuff that won't get you there? So I'm just always kind of trying to listen to different people and see what they have in common, so I don't get lost in any one kind of trap or cul-de-sac, or misunderstanding what they're saying. And so that's why, like, when I listen to Vince and Marius, I say, okay, I kind of think you're both saying the same thing. Like I try to see what they have in common so I can kind of find a center point. But for me, I guess the sticking point right now is, I mean, there's many sticking points, but it's like trying to solve my life and the pain and what is caused by it and all of that. But even when I get out of that, it's just like, well, here I am and I'm experiencing all of that, and I don't know how to not see that I don't even know how to go about exploring that there's no self. And I was saying to Vince, the closest I can get to that is when I've had moments of, peace and the body lets go, and I'm just kind of in this diffuse kind of awareness, and things are just happening. It's not that I then believe there's no self. It's just, it doesn't come up to think about it for a minute or two. That's the closest I think is maybe what you guys are talking about. I, but it doesn't really sound like I'm close to what you guys know. But yeah, is that what you
Okay.
meant?
Kind of, I think. It's it's I like to keep it simple because when it was when it was emphasized that all I can know is my right now experience, what can I know now? I found that really useful. So what's my experience right now? And it's already been said, feet on floor, sound coming out of mouth, washing machine, which I hope you can't hear in the background,
No,
external sounds, and Tammy saying yep, and that sort of thing. Okay.
no, I'm saying no,
But
we don't hear it.
okay. So everything I've been listening, I've been moving around this meeting. That's another thing. There's lots of logistic things going on in the house. but I've been listening to most of it, and everything is in this call, and it's been repeated, and I don't know what will work for you. I can't possibly know that, or when it will quotes work. But what I do know is, going back to what you were saying earlier, that when I think about the times I listened to all the people you've mentioned Adyashanti, Rupert, and a whole raft of them, I was always left feeling it's all right for them out there. They're reporting. And I would also see people coming back week after week, the same people, and some who were older than me. That was frightening. I thought, I wonder how long they've been. You know, I don't know if they were older. They looked, I don't know. You know, I thought, I just lucked out. Really, it's when, if I'm really, really honest about it, it's when I started coming to Vince's calls. This isn't some endorsement. Maybe it is. That I thought, yes, I'm awake. Yes, it's simple. Yes, I'm in quotes good company. There's an authenticity and rigor that goes on here, but not in an aggressive way. When I say rigor, I mean a one-pointedness. You know, people are allowed to go into stories, it seems, as much as they want, but they'll be brought back, and others would chime in. And it's a group. I think Vince and others called it hive mind effect. And I like this sort of synergy of it all. And again, repeating, but I don't know what will work for you.
Mm.
I can't know that. But I just feel very, I would have said blessed in the old days. Yeah, well, okay, lucky, blessed, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That this is where where I am. I've never experienced anything like this.
Good stuff. What comes to mind here, Tammy, I'll send you an email with this exercise in, but I'd like to step you through it so you've got a clearer idea about what it's about. And it's an exercise I've been using for years. When it first came up, it worked really well with some people, and so I've kept it. And I call it the cup exercise. So you can do it in real time if you like, but essentially what I want you to do is get a cup and put it on the table in front of you and sit and look at that cup. Now let's, for the sake of argument here, say it's a white cup. Have you got a white cup you can use?
Mm,
Or mug?
I have a purple one and a glass.
Right, okay. Well, but the purple one's probably better than the glass for the sake of this exercise. Right, so just imagine it, right, that you put it up on the table in front of you. Now, I want you to look at it, and I want you to really, really, really look at the detail in it when you're looking at it. I want you to, so you say it's a purple cup, but that's a story about it, right? When you're looking at it, what you're looking at is what is actual. And when you're looking at it, you can see color and shape and form and texture. So if you look at it closely, you'll see that it's not as smooth as what you first thought it was. It's got little dimples in it, and it's got whatever. You'll look at it and you'll see you called it purple, but in fact the light shines on it in such a way that the purple on one side is different to the purple on the other side. Right, so it's the details that you're getting into when you're looking at it. You're really fixated on it, looking so close. And as you're looking at it, you're starting to almost like you're looking through a telescope at it. You're starting to see it in really fine detail. Right? And while you're doing that, in the middle of doing that, when you're that looking is happening and seeing is what's going on. Seeing is what you would describe as your experience. You're seeing, you're just seeing. You're not even seeing a cup anymore, right? you can recognize probably that the idea, underline that word, idea of a cup is what makes it a cup. So when you're looking at it, if you were an alien looking at it, you probably would have no idea that it's a vessel to contain a liquid to drink out of, right? But without that story, it's not a cup, it's just an object. Right. So anyway, here you are looking and seeing the texture of the surface and the color and the form of it and so on. And while you're in the middle of that experience, really seeing it, I want the thought to turn up that says, who's seeing it? Right? And the moment that thought turns up, you're going to stop seeing it in order to think about who's seeing it. And for me, that's proof that the who exists only in thought, nowhere else other than in thought. And you can even ask yourself, what am I seeing? And the moment you call it a cup, you'll stop seeing again. You'll be back in thought. Right? So both the object that we call a cup and the person doing the looking, Tammy, only exist in thought. And that all there is your experience that we call seeing while it's happening, while you're looking at it with such fine detail that you're immersed in the color and the texture and the form and the shape, etc. Do you get the flavor of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I send you this email, you can have a go at doing it what I've just described and see if you can get into that. So when there'll be a point where you'll be so immersed in the detail that all there is the act of seeing. And even to go, what am I seeing? You'll have to go into mind and stop. You can't not stop seeing. Same as when you ask who is seeing, it's impossible for you to consider who and continue to see. Only the seeing exists when there is seeing, nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
No person, no me, no self, just seeing. And you can mentally start.
I do get that, yeah. And then a
Yeah,
thought comes back online and says, "This is me." Yeah.
yeah. And you can start to do that in your daily life with other things as well. Once you get the hang of that, you'll
Mm-hmm.
you'll start. Wow, you'll be blown away. This is where the magic comes in with being awake. You'll be blown away by stuff that you see. You'll look at a blade of grass and you'll go, oh, fantastic. Look at the shape of that. Look at the way it's set. Look at that. Look at the light shine. You'll just be blown away because you'll be able to see the detail without the intrusion of thought turning it into something that's a story.
Mm.
So a blade of grass is magic, but when it's just a blade of glass, it's just a blade of glass. It's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm.
I'll send you that exercise in an email, Tammy, and I'll send
Will do.
your email to Marius as well. Yeah.
All right.
And
I
something that
will.
came up as you asked about Marius about his experience and that too. So I didn't go through any of this stuff for me to wake up, and this wasn't part of my waking up thing. And I went through, as I said, I went through 45 years and tried everything, and I didn't try any of this. So then it makes me wonder, where did it come from? How am I talking to you about stories and sensations when it wasn't a part of my waking up?
What did you do?
Everything, um, everything except that, I
Mm.
suppose. Yeah. but what I say to people when they first wake up, I say it's a good idea. Go to Liberation Unleashed and go through their procedure and then become a guide and guide people. And what you will use to guide people will simply be that perspective that you've got as an awake person that the person who's not awake doesn't have. They don't know that they're treating a story as if it were actual. They think it
Mm-hmm.
really is actual. And so because you're seeing it from that new perspective of being awake, you'll be able to spot those things from a mile away. Whereas before you're awake, they just seem so normal that they're invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm saying is that from that perspective, that these other things have turned up. I mean, I've been guiding people for 14 years now, so I guess I've had a fair bit of practice, and things that have worked have stuck, and things that haven't have faded away. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I end up with going on about story and sensations because they've
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's not how you did it, but it's how it works for you in guiding.
Yes, yeah,
Mm.
very much so.
So now I'm curious, what did you do, Vince? I want to do those things.
Well, look, here you go. After 45 years or more, really, of seeking, I ended up speaking to a bloke in America. His name was Eric Gross. I don't think he does this stuff anymore, but anyway, I spoke to him, and this was even before when the internet was kind of in its young days. Um, we were still using dial-up modems, and anyway, he charged me $50 to talk to him, and I spoke to him. And anyway, during that conversation, he said to me, he said, Vince, the mosquito bite of seeking is never going to heal while you keep scratching it. So you didn't fall off your chair when I said that, but I did when he told me. I fell off
Mm-hmm.
my chair. I went, oh, yeah, okay, of course, of course. I can't be a seeker and be awake at the same time. They're incompatible. Of course, of course. Oh, oh, oh. So if I stop seeking, I've got goosebumps. If I stop seeking, what's left? Just this. What's this? Ah, my experience is all there is.
I'll tell you
Mm-hmm.
something funny. I encountered Eric Gross as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
And because my internet days go way back too. And I remember I think he was on some mess forum or something else, and you know
Yeah,
those
one
things.
of those forums, yeah.
And I think he said, "I've got a book out." I think it was just coming out. I thought, like with many things, I've got to get this, as if it was the next thing or the thing. And I did, and I thought, wow, this is the most amazing. And I wouldn't have used the word exposition, but it really got me. But it still didn't get me
Didn't
knocked off my seat in the way that you did. It took me, God, that would now be decades more to get something else. And that's why I said, Tammy, is that we can't know. But I think, my intuition is like Vince was saying, stick at it.
Mm-hmm.
Without this sense of getting there, if that's not a contradiction, and keep coming back, as the old slogan goes.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel inclined to, I'm not saying you should do anything.
Yeah, no, of course I'm inclined to. I
It's
just
very
wish it
very
was.
supportive because also the other thing is I've encountered actually more and more even this week with someone who's pretty much on board with this sort of thing, is that they won't quite be on the same page. Not that they should. Just to illustrate very briefly, we have this kind of support group once a week, and there's a woman, sorry, who's we've known for years, and she, it was clear that she was going into a story, and she has, like we all have themes. The deeper rooted ones seem to be from when we're very young. Hers is not being validated or being seen or heard. And I said in a really not too direct way, I don't think. Can you see that that's just another part of your story? And she said, yeah. And then she said something else. I said, yeah, that too is a story. And she said, yeah, but it's my fucking story. And you're here to listen to me. And that's part of her thing, to be heard, to listen to. And I said, oh, I apologize. I said, okay, maybe I was a bit over the top, Ange, but I was just doing what came. And then I thought, then I sort of second guessed myself, and I thought, I don't want to become one of these, what are they, neo-advitants who just keep asking, who's asking the question? Where is the I? Like some machine gun, I wasn't doing that, but God forbid I should. I don't think there's any danger. It's not really part of my nature. I mean, I can be quite focused, but on the odd day. But
I get
anyway,
that. I agree.
so agree what? Sorry.
I agree with not being that boring
No,
machine that just
no, yeah, it's
demonstrates.
just so counterproductive, and yeah, I don't know where that came from. What were we talking about? What were we talking about?
You were
All
saying that you
this.
don't know how it'll happen, and just keep coming back and stuff, and being persistent.
Yeah. I really, and that's not. It's a feeling I have because I'm not massively intuitive. I've kind of, but I really do feel that it's a good place for you, and I'm not saying you should do it. It's just a feeling.
That what's a good place for me?
Here to come here and this whole
Mm,
thing. I think
yeah.
I can't know that. I'm not omniscient.
And you said for you, you have a very different experience now that you couldn't have imagined.
Yeah, yeah. Because I realized that I had subtly been seeking and also not so subtly bypassing. And this goes back to the body stuff, the sensations. Okay. What really helped me was that I used to love reading about these things and researching these things. And I used to be an archivist of techniques and this sort of thing, which I'm still in. I love this whole topic, if you like. I do, but not in the way, not in a seeking way at all, out of an open interest in it. But what did it for me was to get back into, sensation when it comes out, not even feeling, just like raw, even, and going even further, even sensation is a word, so that you get this kind of dissolving. But that's another step, I think. When you, yeah,
Yeah.
that do you see what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
just where I was at because I was so stuck in my head.
I think similar to you in that way. And I think that's why Vince keeps on coming back to experience with me, because I am stuck in the thoughts and the archivist of techniques, whatever you say. Like, I totally get it, all that head research. But yeah.
Yeah. So did you say you don't see that, Amir? You do,
I
or
totally
neither?
resonate with those things. I see that in
Oh,
myself.
sorry. You see that? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Oh, and
And
you're talking about Parkinson's and stuff, and all that sort
yeah.
of thing. I've recently had man flu or a cold or something, some virus, and previously it would have really affected my mood because I would be saying no to it. And even earlier in my seeking career, I would have said something like, "What have I done? What thought? What attitude
Mm-hmm.
have I got or belief? How does it correlate with blah blah blah?" And
Mm-hmm.
so now I was just able to, yeah, it was a minor, but I didn't say, "Oh, I can't record anything because my voice is shit," or any of that. Or whatever the story was, it doesn't matter. That just doesn't matter if I can never record anything again. It's whatever's here now is an event that's going on. We also have a friend with Parkinson's, and she yeah, everyone's different with it. She's okay with it. I mean, really, really, because not because she comes to our groups, because she's kind of even halfway only on board with this kind of thing. You know, she's at least got the idea that her perception is creating her experience. Do you see what I mean? I mean, she. If I said to her, "Can you find the one who?" She'd say, "What are you fucking on about, Tim?" Probably. She might even say "f," because yeah, that's what happens. But she wouldn't mean it horribly. She'd just like it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't land, and I wouldn't do that anyway because I know her. I know her makeup, you know. So, but she gets that. Yeah, that she needn't be at the effect of apparently external events, people, places, and things. And she still rants about certain things, like people should recycle plastic bags as a hobby horse. But generally speaking, you know, we've all got
Yeah.
this and that that arises, and then it doesn't. It just arises and it's gone. You know.
Yeah, and that whole thing with illness, I think, started because Vince had said to me, "Do you recognize that when you're tense, you're in resistance to what is?" And then I said, "Well, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm sick or something." But what were you going to say about resistance, Vince, before I interrupted you for 3 hours?
Did you say what Vince was going to say, or me?
Yeah, Vince had said we had started out with
Vince
you saying
mentioned.
that when I'm clenched and contracted, you said it was resistance to what is, and then I said, "Well, maybe it's just an illness or something." But you had started saying like, "Is
Oh,
there
I
anything
was
to do
just
with that?" I guess.
no, I wasn't talking about. Well, I mean,
Oh no,
I
no,
was
no! I was
resist.
just asking Vince. Sorry, sorry,
Okay,
Tim.
okay, yeah, yeah.
No, I was referring it to Vince in relation to
Sorry,
what you had said.
yeah.
You're asking me to remember. I don't remember. Um, but but I can come at it fresh. Um, so form your question about resistance.
It's okay. We had just started out with you saying, "Do you recognize that when you're tense or contracted in the body, it's you're resisting
Yeah, I get.
something that is?" And I
Yeah,
was like, "No, maybe it's an illness." And that's how it started out with the whole,
yeah.
you
So
know,
this rests on
contract.
a story that I've got that comes up here, and that is that our, when we were kids and we experienced what kids call trauma, right? They might not, wouldn't use the word, but what they would describe as trauma, So when they've got an adult yelling at them, or they're told how lazy they are, or whatever, whether it be physical or verbal abuse, whatever we experience, whatever we go through, right? As a young kid, we're naive, and we believe an adult when they're telling us that we're stupid or something. We tend to give them credibility because they're an adult. And so we develop this way of looking at ourselves. And then what we do after a while is we don't need them anymore to tell us. We start telling ourselves the same thing. Right. So what we've got is we've got this inbuilt belief about our inadequacy in some kind, right? And so when that inadequacy gets triggered, it brings up a horrible feeling. There's this sensation that says, this is bad. You're bad. Even worse, you're bad. Right. So what we do is we don't want to experience that, so we avoid it. We tend to avoid it in ways that we develop. Some of us avoid it by eating something. Some of us avoid it by going and cleaning something. Some of us avoid it by, these days we'd pick up a device and start playing a game or scrolling on social media or something like that. But we avoid it. What we don't want is that shitty feeling that we've got. And that avoidance is some kind of activity, some mental or physical activity that distracts us from that. But over time, as it evolves, we don't even recognize the arising of that shitty feeling that's come from that original thing, but our body does, and our body contracts. And so what we've then got is we've got a secondary thing going on where we're contracting as a result of that original story, but we're telling ourselves, this is terrible. Does this mean I'm sick? Does this mean I should, am I bad? Is there something wrong? Those kind of stories. And that's then we react to those stories on top of. So we've got the original trigger, and then we've got the response to the original trigger, and then we've got the response to the response of that, and that's the one we notice. That's out in the that's it. So we've got this, and most of your stories are a way of distracting yourself from that original trauma. That's a way of putting it. Uh,
Rather than from something that's going on right now.
well,
You
what's
think
going on right now is the reaction to that original story, and then the reaction to that reaction, and that's the one that you're aware of. That's the one that seems to be kind of on the surface now. And those, and so the first thing is not so much resistance; it's just distraction. And then, but you could call that resistance. But anyway, it's a distraction from the original, and then we get our reaction to that, and that's the one that we call resistance. The body tightens up, and so we've got to distract from that as well. So it becomes a bit of a cyclic thing that spirals off, and that's the kind of story that I've got about where resistance comes from. It's a case of us resisting feeling the original because we feel helpless. Right? We've still got, like, along with the original conditioning or training that we had that we call trauma, we've still got the original naive attitude that we're helpless and we can't do anything about that, and that it's our fault, and so on. And so that stuff carries through. But as an adult, that's not appropriate, and we can see that when we look at it. But we don't get to look at it because we're so good at avoiding it. With the distraction, and then the trauma that comes up when we respond to the distraction.
So you're saying something arises in the present, and then we believe that we're helpless and we're bad, and so we don't look at the present because we're too afraid because of those
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. And we don't even see that part though. That part happens almost unconsciously, um,
Mhm.
because we only have to get a hint of it appearing, and we're going to get into the distraction mode, right? But that distraction mode causes problems in itself, and that's where we start to. That's where we'll wonder whether we're sick or whether we're bad or whatever.
Mhm. So that's where going into sensation comes in, of realizing we can handle it and not to be afraid of it.
Yeah, look, there's something I need to bottle it and put it into a pill and give it to you, or something that it's really difficult to transmit. Is that there's a, a, a way of looking at stuff that turns up where there's no judgment. Like when I went to the doctor today and she told me I was a high risk for a heart attack or a stroke, I was a bit amazed at myself that there was absolutely no reaction to that other than stories about, well, this might be the motivation to lose some weight, or I should walk a lot further every day. We
Mhm.
needed to do short walks these days rather than long walks, and so on. So there was reaction in terms of stories that might, again, held very lightly, stories that might or might not happen. I might lose weight, and intention did arise that I haven't for a long time, but I'm going to do another fast, um, and that resets things a little bit. And then I'm going to, be very much more particular about what I eat. I mean, I have a pretty good diet, I think, but I eat too much bread, and not that I eat a lot of bread, but I eat too much, and so on. And I am overweight, and so consequently, if I can lose some weight, that would be good, I imagine, for my health. And so there's stories there, but held lightly, might or might not happen, and no judgment about whether they do or not either. It's just the way things are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I will try to swallow that pill that
Mm,
you've sent my.
yeah. So the thing is, it just we've no idea what's going to be the triggers for you that help you that allow you to flip the switch and see what I see. That's kind of how it'll happen. But we don't know what they are. We never know. Even just because it's happened for me, and I know it's not going to be the same for anyone else, and everybody is different. So we just got to keep trying this switch and that switch and that and that and that and that, and maybe one day it'll happen or not. But that's all we can do. It's as close as we can get to it.
It's so funny because it comes from like people doing, Zen or whatever, meditation or whatever you want to call it, searching for decades, and no one really believes they can become awake. And now it's like if you don't become awake within a few months of sessions, it's like, what's wrong with you? Get with the program.
Yeah, yeah. We can take, however many years you like, 50 years of conditioning, and say, well, I want to get rid of that in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the enlightened word is really a tricky one.
Oh, yeah, I dislike it.
Because
Yeah.
because everyone no matter what school of say Buddhism or anything you go to, they actually have different criteria. Even within Buddhism, different schools have different criteria for what that actually means. It's nuts.
I've been
The
seeing
whole
that.
thing is
Yeah.
like,
Very
yeah, you must,
confusing.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've clearly looked around. And I think one of the things, criticisms, I suppose, have about Advaita is it's like it's implied that you kind of you can get it and it's a landing point.
Mm.
There's a yeah, yeah. And it seems kind of comfortable. It's a false, to me it was a false sense of comfort. It
Mm.
just it doesn't. And if you really look at it, that's I think what they're saying is it is actually the first fetter in in
Mm.
Buddhism. Really, when it boils down to it, and
Yep.
that's just stream. That's just an entry point. That's a
Mm.
beginning. But so
Yeah.
which is the way it goes. I mean, yeah, well, it's an endless something and nothing, I
Yeah.
suppose.
And it's rather
Um,
interesting that the second fetter is doubt, and after the first fetter, the second fetter turns up. And uh, people that get there in the Advaita way, it's a really fragile state. And when doubt turns up for them, they're floored. They're on their face, and they've got nowhere to go.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So I kind of see this as a lot more thorough in terms of looking at all of the underlying foundations for the beliefs that make up a self.
yeah. I think it's really important. Um,
All right. Well, I'm going to go spend a
Thank you
20
guys so
minutes
much.
before bed. Okay.
I'm
Yeah. All
going
right.
to do the hoovering. Exciting times.
Oh, okay. Good one. Yeah. Yeah. We recently bought a robot vacuum cleaner and we love it.
Okay, I'll tell my wife.
Yeah.
I'll be absolved then.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get a cheap one.
I,
Get a good one. But yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Beautiful.
enjoy.
All right.
I'll
All
see
right.
you,
Thank
where are
you
we,
so
in a
much.
day or two, hopefully. All right.
Yeah.
Bye,
Okay.
Tammy. Take it
Thanks
easy.
so
Bye.
much.
All right.
You
Thanks,
Cheers.
too.
Bye.
Tammy. Yeah. I'll email you.
Thanks, Vince. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Really enjoy you, Tammy. I do.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay.